Hi, welcome to Glimpse TV. This is Kate Northrup, and I am so excited to be here with Pat Flynn of smartpassiveincome.com. He's come into Portland, Maine, all the way from San Diego for the Agents of Change conference. And I'm just like really psyched to be here with you.
Thanks for having me.
I've been listening to your podcast, and passive income is something I've been interested in since I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was like 16. Have you read that book by Robert Kiyosaki?
It was one of the first books about sort of this thing that I've ever read.
This thing. So how do you define passive income?
Well, there's obviously a lot of different ways to define it, kind of depending on what industry you're coming from, financial, investment, whatever. For me, it's building systems of automation that can pay you without you actually having to trade your time for it.
Yeah.
So in other words, you know, traditionally when you work X hours, you get paid for X hours of work. When you stop working, you stop getting paid.
Right.
We live in an age now where we can build businesses that work for us instead of us working for our businesses. We can create these things. It's not easy. It takes a lot of work and building an audience and stuff, but you can create systems of automation where people can...
upfront work.
Yes. You're investing time up front so you can get paid and reap those benefits later.
Yeah. And one of the coolest things that you do is that you publish your income and your expenses. And I love the transparency of that.
Thank you.
Was that scary the first time you posted that?
It wasn't, actually, people ask me about this all the time. It wasn't very scary at all.
Okay.
You know, for me, I was like, you know, if I'm going to be teaching this stuff online, I need to be completely honest and transparent and authentic with my audience, because there were so many people in this space that I was entering, kind of almost by accident. I entered this space after getting laid off. And then building a successful online business in the architecture space. I wanted to show everybody what was happening.
Right.
And I felt like if I didn't tell it all, I was just going to be put into the same category as all the other slimy internet marketers.
It's a you know, I work in the same industry as well as in direct selling, and it is can get scammy, slimy, weird.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're obviously not one of those scammy, slimy, weird people. Neither am I, and I love that you set yourself apart in that way.
I mean, it's just who I am, and it just happened to set me apart. And it's kind of scary how being authentic and transparent is what sets me apart. Like, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I'm glad that I'm able to step up as a leader in this space, but it scares me that there's so many people out there who are, you know, just making money through exaggeration and hype and really playing off of people's hopes and dreams. Yeah. And me, when I got into this business by accident, I discovered that by actually giving everything away as much as I could and providing value, that's what was helping me get paid, and that's been my business model ever since.
Yeah. So you have a bunch of different streams of income, and if you're curious what they are, you can go to smartpassiveincome.com and find out. But I'd love to talk about what's one of the ones that you're the most excited about right now, because I would imagine you like the initial enthusiasm comes and you build it, and then you're obviously an entrepreneur, you're a starter. It's like, okay, what's the next project? So what's the one that's lighting you up these days?
Well, that's the cool thing about building passive income streams. You work hard on it, you're excited, and then you kind of not set it and forget it, but you set it and let it do its thing, and you or somebody else on your team can help manage it while you can then focus, like we want to do, on these other things. And right now I'm really into building software. I actually have a project that I just started called the Smart Podcast Player, because a lot of podcasts, you know, they have their players on their site and they're just the plain play button, but there's a lot of ways to utilize that. And it was actually, I was scratching my own itch, because I have another podcast in addition to the Smart Passive Income podcast called AskPat.com.
Which is awesome.
Thank you. 5-day a week, and it was sort of a different, I didn't want to publish a new blog post every time I published that episode. So my team and I created this player that was just for me. I put it on the website, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, that player is awesome, where can I get it? And at first I was like, haha, it's just mine, like it's my own thing, nobody can get it. And then I was like, okay, wait, business opportunity, everybody's asking where they can get it. And so my team and I worked to turn that into a WordPress plugin that people can get and put on their site to host their podcast.
So if you're a podcaster, check that out.
Smartpodcastplayer.com.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I mean, I think it's really interesting. And if you've built it to meet your specifications, obviously it's good, because you weren't like, oh, let me create software to sell. You were like, I need this for me.
Well, it's interesting because in 2010, there were a bunch of premium WordPress plugins that came out, and I was like, wow, I need to get into this game. What plugin can I create? And I hired a company for $10,000 to create this plugin for an idea I had, and it totally bombed. Totally failed. The idea didn't match up to what actually happened, and you know, I was getting into the software business just to make money, which isn't the right way to go about it. You need to go in the software business to actually solve a big problem that your audience has. And that's the cool part about software, and the most fulfilling part for me. Even we're still in beta with Smart Podcast Player currently, but what's cool is with the beta groups that we've opened to, you know, they buy it, and then that night they're using it.
That's awesome.
It is so cool.
It's immediate.
Immediate, that transaction.
Because I have to say, and I bet you many of the people listening as soon as I hear software, I kind of like leave my body. I'm like, that's complicated.
Right.
You know? So I love that you said, you know, immediately, like, this is not complicated.
Right,
You're
a web
using it.
solution
A
for
web
something.
solution.
And I mean, just to see it there right away after they purchase it is amazing, because with information, you know, people have to buy the information,
Right.
and then they have to consume it, and then they have to do what it says, and then even then the results are going to be mixed.
Right.
But with software, I mean, all of us, we're paying monthly for different pieces of software.
We use, I mean, any number of things all the time. I
Dropbox,
love
whatever.
that you're innovating in that space.
Yeah, it's so fun
That's
and
really
challenging, and you know, obviously the startup world is growing now, but
So, and then one of the other projects that you work on, I love, so Pat created smartpassiveincome.com. When did you start?
October 2008.
Okay, October 2008, sort of by accident, after you made this guide to pass a certain test in the architecture world, and then it started to sell, and then you were like, oh my God, this is a business, right? I mean, that's the very short version of the story.
Yeah.
And then it got rolling, and it's really been generating income, and then you created foodtrucker.com as a, like, hey, I did it over here, but let me start something fresh as well, which I love. So can you talk a little bit about that for people who might be more in the, here's what happens. You know this, right? People look at you and they're like, oh, he's all established and now he's doing this and I can't do that because he's X, Y, and Z and all this stuff. And so then you...
Well, actually, before Food Trucker, in 2010, people were like, I don't think I can do this, exactly what you said. And then I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to build a business from scratch in an industry I know nothing about.
Right.
And let's see what happens.
I love that.
In 73 days, I got to #1 in Google, started making thousands of dollars. And I showed the exact process along the way. And then a number of years passed, a couple of years, and then people were like, okay, Google's changed a lot.
Right.
The environment online has changed. Do it again. And I was like, okay.
Because this is fun for you.
Right, it is totally fun.
Yeah.
And I'm building passive income streams, and you know, I failed before, and I failed many times. I make a lot of mistakes, but it's always a lesson for everybody watching.
Yeah.
And it just increases my credibility in the whole transparency, authenticity situation. And so with Food Trucker, you know, I go through the whole process of showing why I picked the food truck industry. Obviously, it's growing here in the U.S. And how I built the website, how I created content, hired a writer to find and do all that stuff. We actually just released, after a year of putting stuff into it without making any money. It's a long time, and that's why a lot of people give up.
Yeah.
We just launched our first product last month, actually, and made a little over $3,000 from a book that we published.
Congratulations.
And it's just one of many monetization ideas we have.
Well, yeah, and I really want you to hear that Pat was building this for a year and putting out free content and adding value, and it's, that's what's so valuable to know. I think that in the online space it can be like, oh yeah, overnight I made 20,000, and it's just like, no, this is a real business. Just because you're doing it in your jammies, like with your kids running around, right?
I was just telling everybody earlier, like, because I feel that I look pretty dapper, right? But I work from home in like my PJs, so anytime I have a chance to dress up, I do it.
So one of the things that I've heard you talk about is your family. And would I be correct in saying that one of the biggest reasons you've done this is so that you can spend time with your family, your wife and kids?
The biggest reason.
Yeah. So like you can just hang out on a Tuesday afternoon and...
That's exactly what we do.
Do whatever.
I mean, I spend all day with my kids. Like, I'm actually quite sad now because a couple weeks ago my son started preschool. And I'm sad because I was so used to seeing him all day running around the house, pulling on me. I have all this extra time now. I have a daughter, but she's a lot easier to take care of. And now he's gone. And it's been a hard transition. But anyway, I do what I do so I can provide for my family, be there for them. I've been there from the moment my son was born to the moment he started preschool, every single day, watching every single first that he's had.
That's a really important piece. What you said is not only provide for them, but be there.
But be there.
Because our presence is the biggest gift we can give.
And
the money's nice, but the presence as well.
And there's another level to that. You might be there physically, but not mentally.
Exactly.
And that was a big struggle for me. Yeah. Before we had kids, my wife and I, we would chat a lot, and I didn't have a schedule, and I was so an entrepreneur, always thinking about my business. I would have conversations with her, and I'd be nodding. Yes, but in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, got to answer that email.
Right.
We all go through that. And one time, she caught me off guard. She knew I was not focusing, and she's like, "You're thinking about your business, aren't you?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Well, what was the last thing I said?" And I was like, "You're not thinking about your business, aren't you?" And I was like, "No, before that." And she got me, and we had a serious conversation about that in terms of, okay, what is my actual schedule? And we always talking about breaking away from the 9 to 5 and killing the schedule, flexible hours. But I found that at least for me, I need the hours so I know when to check out.
Yeah, you have to turn it off.
You have to.
I mean, that's just, I mean, because if you're going to have the freedom that you have and that we're all building and creating, and you don't use it, then it's sort of a waste,
right?
In a way.
How many people do we know who have started their own thing to get away, and then they're working more
and totally burned out,
yeah.
and exhausted, and like bags under their eyes and bloodshot, you know?
Yeah.
So 2 last questions.
Sure.
What are you doing in your life right now that you're scared of, but that you're doing anyway?
Public speaking. It scares me to death, but I do it because I know it's good for my business, but I also know that working on this skill is going to help improve a lot of other aspects of my business, and it already has. I've only been doing it for a couple of years, but I'm at a point now where I'm actually getting paid to do it, which is awesome. Like, I get to do the opening keynote for New Media Expo next year, which I'm deathly scared of. That's like 4,000 people, so I got to bring my A game. I always try to bring my A game, but
you brought it today.
Thank you.
It was really great. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun, but
and also, like, not only were you funny and engaging, you also delivered really great content. And sometimes I find that you either get great content or funny and engaging.
Right.
So to bring those together is good.
Thank you so much. So, you know, knowing that this is a skill I want to do, I hired a coach. I've read all the books. I practice, and practice.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And when do you feel the most free?
When I'm with my kids.
With your kids.
You know, especially midday, and you know, I know that I'm just such a lucky person to be there with them when other parents aren't.
Yeah.
And that's why I do what I do, to try to get other people to understand that, you know, they could do the same thing. You know, I'm just a regular guy. I just happen to take action. And I want to share everything because I want people to experience the same thing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on
Thank
my
you.
show. I really appreciate it. And check out smartpassiveincome.com.